We all have this picture in our heads of a science teacher. But what if that picture is, well, completely wrong? What if I told you that behind the lab coat is one of the most complex, high-stakes jobs you can imagine? Today, let's pull back the curtain and explore the hidden world of the science teacher. So right away, let's tackle the stereotypes. On the left, you've got the movie version of a science teacher, right? Cool lectures about volcanoes, mixing some fun, colorful liquids, and grading a few tests. But the reality, over on the right, is a completely different universe. They aren't just lecturing. They are designing incredibly detailed inquiry-based curricula. They aren't just playing with chemicals. They are professionally managing hazardous materials. And they're not just grading papers. They're actively mentoring our next generation of scientists and thinkers. So let's dive into their first major role, and it's a big one, the architect of discovery. This isn't about just cracking up in a textbook and reading chapter 5. No, this is about meticulously crafting an entire learning experience from the ground up. And just look at what goes into building a single great lab lesson. It all starts with super clear objectives. What do we want the students to actually learn here? Then they scaffold inquiry, which is a fancy way of saying they don't just give students a recipe to follow. Instead, they guide them to ask their own questions and find their own answers. Of course, they're integrating modern tech and data tools, and then, and this is key, they have to design assessments that actually show if a student understood the concept, not just if they memorized a fact. And what does meaningful assessment actually look like? Well, it's way more than a multiple choice quiz. We're talking about practical exams, where a student has to physically perform a tricky technique, like a titration. They're grading detailed lab reports, they're evaluating research posters, and they're even looking at how students reflect on their own learning process in their notebooks. It's all about assessing real, tangible skills. Okay, let's shift gears to another massive part of the job, one that most of us never even see. This is the teacher as the guardian of the lab. This is where they're juggling student safety, tight budgets, and a mountain of official compliance rules. It's a huge weight of responsibility. And to really get a sense of this, just think about this number, 8. That's how many distinct core professional roles a science teacher is expected to play. We've mentioned instructor and curriculum designer, but add to that safety officer, resource manager, budget planner, equity advocate. You get the picture. It's literally like having 8 jobs rolled into one. And when we say safety officer, that's not just some casual nickname. It is a professional responsibility with a formal definition. They are legally and ethically responsible for identifying and dealing with actual chemical, biological, and physical hazards. They enforce strict protocols and manage all the official paperwork to prove it. The stakes here are incredibly high. This little table gives you just a tiny snapshot of their daily world. For every single chemical, they have to make sure students can access the safety data sheet, or SDS. For every experiment, they have to ensure everyone is wearing the proper personal protective equipment, or PPE. And as you can see, every single one of these duties is directly tied to preventing serious injury or even toxic exposure. But, beyond all the logistics, beyond the safety checklists, we get to the real heart of the profession, the teacher as the mentor of minds. This is where the job becomes truly profound. It's about shaping how students think, not just what they know. This quote from the professional standards just says it all. The teacher models and coaches scientific habits of mind. They're teaching kids the art of asking good questions, the discipline of using evidence to back up their claims, and maybe most importantly, the resilience of iteration, of trying something, failing, and trying again. These are skills for life, not just for science. A huge part of being a great mentor is creating a lab where everyone feels like they belong. And that means actively designing experiments that are accessible to students with different physical or learning abilities. It means making sure the culture is respectful and supportive and carefully structuring group work so that every single student gets a voice and a chance to contribute. Because science has to be for everyone. So when you start putting all these different pieces together, the architect, the guardian, the mentor, what you end up with is the complete science professional. So let's take a look at the incredible toolkit of skills they need and where a career this demanding can actually take them. Here it is, the core competency toolkit. And yeah, of course, they need deep knowledge of biology, chemistry, or physics, but look at everything else on this list. They need pedagogical skill, that's the actual science of how to teach effectively. They need to be experts in lab techniques, in safety and risk management, in assessment, and on top of it all, they need killer communication and management skills. It's an absolutely staggering range of expertise. And all those skills open up a real career path. Someone might start out as a teacher or a lab technician, but with that experience, they can grow into a department lead or even become the dedicated safety officer for an entire school district. From there, maybe go on to become curriculum coordinators or even join a university faculty where they're the ones training the next generation of teachers. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, the science teacher is someone who manages incredible risk, who inspires lifelong curiosity, and who is literally building our future, one student at a time. After seeing everything that goes into it, you really have to ask yourself, isn't that one of the most important jobs in the world?